What's up, everybody? Welcome into BetSided Best Bets, Final Four edition. We have finally arrived at this moment. Ben Heisler, Ian McMillan, Peter Dewey, Donovan Smoot, Reed Wallach, and of course, video director Joanne Stoner with us as well. Fellas, it's good to see you. I know that we put together what we described as a perfect second chance bracket. Um, Not quite how we thought it would go. And what was it? Can someone remind me how we did the Houston thing? It was ring, finger, and thumb all together. I have it right. Okay,
The kiss
yeah,
of death. We should have known.
big old
Cougs down.
big old cougs down from last week. What I'm curious to know is, like, here we are at the Final Four with, I suppose you could call it, four blue blood schools. Like, let's start there. Like, do we consider Villanova a blue blood school? Peter, you're like 100%. Yes.
Hell yeah. I saw people saying like the only blue bloods are like Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Indiana, UCLA. Like I feel like we gotta throw Villanova in there. I believe it's 20-3 in the last 6 NCAA tournaments. Like they don't lose. Jay Wright is a fantastic coach. They're a perennial contender. I throw them in a blue blood. Like they've gotten plenty of 1 seeds. They don't get like necessarily like those top NBA recruits, but they get the top college players, the Colin Gillespie's, the Ryan Arcidiaconos, the Jalen Brunsons of the world. So yeah, I think they're a blue blood program for sure.
What's the time limit that you have to be like a blue blood, right? Because if you're just talking about like the Jay Wright era, and you go back to, or when they started winning national championships, and you go back to like 2016, like it's a nice run, right? Like I don't want to be disrespectful. It's very, very impressive, but to compare their 6-year run with the history of North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Indiana, all those other programs, like it's not the same.
Ben's gonna get mad at me, but I mean, what has Indiana won in God only knows how long? Like, I mean, if we're like,
I didn't even know Indiana was considered a blue blood. To be honest,
you can get. Listen, I didn't know either. But my argument for that would be, you get grandfathered in.
Okay, so but you can't join if you're winning. Like that's
you have to win for, I would say, at least a decade, right? A decade, maybe 15 years.
I don't know. I feel like blue blood is like it could be a looser term. I understand there's like the core group of teams, but like I would consider maybe not a blue blood because that's like its own little thing, but these are like 4 marquee programs. Like I would say these are 4 perennial college basketball programs. So maybe not blue blood, but in terms of notoriety, this is kind of as big as you could get when it comes to a Final Four perspective in terms of, 4 big programs. I mean, Nova, like we just said, they've had a decade, not close to a decade, half a decade of excellence here, been to 2 Final Fours, 1, 2 national championships. So I think they fit the bill as a powerhouse, maybe not a blue blood if we're going to get like technical with it.
Yeah.
My opinion is if they have tournament success and continue their success after Jay Wright leaves, then I think you can consider them a blue blood.
Okay.
I think it needs to go through a couple generations of coaches.
Because UCLA had a downturn too for the past like decade until this little 2-year stint. So like, I don't know. I feel like I get like the blue blood. It's kind of like an old school term, but I think it all kind of fits. As we got new blood. I like that. Even though these are all kind of old school, but except for Nova, but I kind of like it.
The blue blood versus the new blood, but like. And by the way, we will get into our Final Four picks coming up shortly. The gang has assembled our top-notch picks ahead of Duke and North Carolina, as well as Kansas and Villanova. Maybe some futures for the actual championship along the way. So, by the way, feel free to weigh in as our guy Bruin is checking in. New blood is the best term that I've heard for it. Also, Brian checking in, already giving his best bet before we dive in, going with Kansas -5. Ugh.
He's wrong.
Not only that, but you waited a little bit, Brian. Like could have gotten that number at 4 when the lines opened up. Little late to the party there. But we'll dive into Kansas Villanova. To that point about the new blood and to your point, Ian, I think that's a really interesting call. Like, is it a program that's going to be generational, right? Like it's not just one coach that's setting the tone. If we're talking about Indiana in this case, after Bob Knight,
I know where Peter's going.
After Bob Knight, they didn't make it. They made it to a championship under Mike Davis, but I mean, there hasn't been any sort of sustainability. I also wonder if you can make the argument, like people, if you're talking about like Nebraska, for example, Nebraska was a blue blood college football program for a long, long time. And now they're sort of on the outside looking in. I feel like Indiana's in a very similar category where, like that is the sole focus of the fan base, right? Like Indiana fans could give a rat's ass about what happens in football, except for me as the Meatball Indiana football fan. But on a basketball side, like that's the full, like that's the conversation. That's what everything is about. That is the sole focus of your program, is on that basketball team. I feel like maybe that's where the blue blood conversation comes in, is the focus from the entirety of the athletic program. Like that's your moneymaker. But I'm curious as to what you guys have on this.
I think I have an amendment to Ian's definition.
Okay.
If your school starts to suck and they have like this downturn of just awful seasons, if at any point like you can say and the national media can say, is such and such school back, you're a blue blood.
Ooh, I think it's tough to lose your blue blood like your credentials. I feel like once you're a blue blood, you are like auto in.
That's what I'm saying. Like for Texas had a decade of success, and they've been, I don't want to get into everything, but they've basically been very mediocre for a majority of their existence. Ian, you can't do that. I can do that. You can't do that.
I don't know though, because I feel like people throw around the "is Texas back" thing now like a joke almost. But I do agree with you, I guess, because Texas, in my opinion, is a blue blood college football team. Obviously, we're talking basketball, but
yeah. And so it's turned into a meme because of what Sam said. But there is it's a legitimate question at the start of
every marquee Texas game. It's always the burning question.
Yeah.
I think, Ben, you made a good point in terms of like, is it this all year, like this year moneymaker, your number one? Like Villanova basketball is Villanova. Like, I mean, they're an FCS football team. Like that, Villanova basketball is everything. Like there is no question about that. That's why I put them in the category. I think they've been good enough. I mean, they like, it's not like they play in some small conference. They play in the Big East. Like, to me, they're a blue blood program. They've also had 6, 7, 8 guys go to the NBA too from the program over the past 6, 7 years. Like that matters too. I think you have to be a destination for, NBA talent to kind of carry the name into the next level as well. So I put Villanova there, but I like the term new blood as well. I think that's a good way to mix both.
Let's workshop some new blood teams, because I think Nova, they fall into that new blood. Gonzaga, they got to win though.
I still think they're in they've been a number 1 seed how many years in a row now?
But you kind of got to win. You got to win one.
We're not preaching mediocrity around here.
Virginia's new blood.
Virginia can maybe fit.
They were upset. They don't.
Nah, they lost to a 16 seed.
St. Peter's.
Yeah, St. Peter's.
Tennessee.
Oh hell no. Anybody who has Rick Barnes,
I just want to get Donovan going because of his pick.
Anyone who has Rick Barnes as their head coach is completely unserious about winning basketball games. That's
it's tough for an SEC school though, because they're more focused on football anyway. I know Kentucky's a little bit different, but it's like Tennessee, like football will always be king there.
Is Arizona and Michigan State old blood?
I think they're like in the in between, probably closer to not our
transfusion blood, like in between, like
Michigan falls into there also.
Texas Tech is new. Yeah, they haven't won, but yeah,
they're getting there.
They're in the final.
All right, we got something here. By the way, feel free to weigh in the chat as well. If you got a new blood, an old blood, an in between blood, whatever kind of blood you want to throw into the mix, we'll certainly evaluate it. But let's dive into the Final Four. I think it's been a fascinating run to get to this point, right? Like starting in the region that I think was certainly the most interesting for all of us in the West, because I mean, you had Ian sweating an Arkansas tattoo. And by the way, like when Gonzaga won, I think our audience needs to get a sense of like,
you mean Duke?
No, Duke made it. But
when Arkansas beat Gonzaga. Yeah, when Arkansas beat Gonzaga.
Gonzaga.
Oh, okay.
Like, because that was one game away, Ian, and you had Arkansas losing to Vermont. Like, I think our audience has a general idea of like how legitimately freaked out you were that this tattoo was of a Razorback was fully coming onto you. Like, this was happening.
Yeah, I made a video after Arkansas beat Gonzaga, and I said in it, I said, okay, this is the first time I'm officially nervous because, like I said when I originally made the bet, which I mean it was a stupid thing for me to do because like there's no benefit of me doing that. It wasn't like if Arkansas didn't make it, I'd get something. Yeah, I did think Vermont was going to beat Arkansas in the first round. They were close. What is a 4-point game? But in my head, I was like, all right, if Arkansas gets by Vermont, which is certainly possible, they're not going to get by Gonzaga. But then they did. And then I got nervous. And it wasn't only just the nerves. It was then the fact that I had to cheer for my least favorite team and my least favorite coach in all of sports, Coach K. So it was a lose-lose situation heading into that game. But I was legitimately nervous, and I lost a couple hours of sleep. What was it? Thursday night and Friday night before Saturday. So I was a ball of nerves. I was hugging a pillow for like the entire first half of the game against Duke.
Did you have a celebration after Duke won, even though Duke won?
Not really. I do wish it was going to be, obviously, in hindsight, it's easy for me to say this. At the time, I probably wasn't wishing for, but I was wishing it was going to be a little bit close because I felt it was a little anticlimactic. I didn't have a big celebration. It was just a little weight off my shoulders for sure.
All right. So let's dive into some of these Final Four matchups. We'll start with Kansas and Vin Villanova. That's the early game. Kansas right now over at WinBet Sportsbook is a 4.5-point favorite, minus 200 on the money line. Conversely, Villanova plus 4.5, plus 165 on the money line. Low total, not like one of those gross totals that we saw in the Elite Eight for Villanova. But it is a very low total indeed of 133. I kind of want to start with just sort of this matchup in general and the impact of Justin Moore not being there. So Reed, I'll kick it off to you because I know you just wrote about this over at BetSided. Like, is this as substantial of a loss as the odds makers are making it out to be? Because it feels like it's pushing the line a little bit too far.
Yeah, I mean, it is a loss. It's a big loss. Justin Moore played the second most minutes per game for Villanova, but I don't know. This feels a little much. I played some plus 4.5. I think if it gets any further, I'm going to play again on Nova. Again, I just don't see a lot of edges for Kansas to take advantage. I understand Justin Moore, a big part of it, but Nova, they make you play their game. They're going to play slow. They beat Houston at it. They're going to play slow. If Kansas can't get out and run, I'll take Nova even without Justin Moore in a half-court execution-style game. And give me Colin Gillespie again. Jay Wright has a coaching advantage, in my opinion. This seems a bit much. I mean, Nova closed 3-point underdogs against Houston. Even if you consider Justin Moore worth 1.5 to the spread, you're telling me Kansas is that much better than Houston? I don't see a huge difference here to really react to this line. Again, if this is gonna be a low possession game, give me two buckets. So I'm more than happy to take Nova here. I think Nova's pretty live to win, to be honest with you.
Disagree.
That's okay.
If we're just
You're
gonna
entitled to your opinion.
Well, my opinion's the right one. That was the issue.
Wildcat tattoo?
No. No more tattoo bets for this.
No more tattoo bets. Too close.
But if I'm just going to get into it, because this is my best bet of the Final Four, I got Kansas minus 4.5. Did it move to 5?
Not yet.
Not yet.
In Brian's book, apparently it did because that was his best bet when he came. We jumped in on the chat. He had Kansas minus 5. Maybe he's doing an alternative line to try and get a little bit more juice back.
Listen, I am a big underreact guy. You guys know this. I like to underreact to injuries and things like that, but I don't think it can be understated how much of an impact this Justin Moore injury is going to have, especially defensively. I think he's one of their best defensive players. He's the third leading rebounder. And Villanova already is at a stylistic disadvantage against this Kansas team. This Kansas team can pound it down low. That's kind of what they do. That's their bread and butter. And Villanova's biggest weakness is their interior defense. They rank outside the top 100 and opponent 2-point field goal percentage. So you're already at a stylistic disadvantage, and then you lose arguably your best defensive player and your third best rebounder. Not good. Not good. And also Villanova's biggest strength, we all know, and this is kind of what you have to look at every time that you handicap a Villanova game, is how the team that they're playing against does in defending the three ball because of how often the Wildcats shoot the three, and Kansas is one of the best in the country, keeping teams to 30% from beyond the arc. So stylistically, which is a word I like to use quite a bit, I think this is an easy game for Kansas. So obviously Villanova can get the three ball going. If they do, they can win this game, but I'm going to lay the points with Kansas.
Yeah, and all fair points. Again, we're at the Final Four. These teams are good. I'm not saying Kansas stinks or anything like that. But again, I think you're looking at Villanova. They could slow this game into a grind. And is Kansas going to turn Villanova over? No. They aren't particularly great on anything on the defensive end. And I actually think that Nova's defense sets up pretty well, especially with an excellent game planner and Jay Wright. They force teams outside of the paint. They play this matchup zone typically. They're going to force Kansas to shoot. And listen, if Ochai Agbaji is going to go off, then he's going to go off. But again, I'm going to side with the balance of Nova. I think they're an experienced team, and they're going to be able, I think, to slow this game down and make it into, again, half court. Again, this is just a lot of points to me. And Kansas closed a 6-point favorite against Miami. You're saying Miami is a 1.5 worse than Villanova? I get the Justin Moore thing, but how much is Justin Moore really worth to the spread? I just think this is a bit of a overreaction in the line. And listen, we've seen Kansas kind of let a Providence hang around, a Creighton hang around. I get they went off against Miami in the second half, but again, this just feels like a lot of too much momentum in Kansas direction.
I do want to say really quick, I want to address Watts211 in the chat says Remy Martin might be the best player in college basketball right now. I think he's a very sneaky bet to actually win most outstanding player in the tournament. I forget what his odds are. I want to say they're around like 16-1 at some places.
They were 50-1 last week.
Yeah. Obviously, he's played very well throughout the tournament. It's going to obviously depend on the last two games, and obviously they need to win the national championship. But if you're looking for a bit of a dark horse bet, I think he's the best one on the board. What's Kansas's best player? I mispronounce his name all the time. I don't want to disrespect him.
Ochai Agbaji.
Obviously, he should be favored, but I think if you're looking for a dark horse bet, Remy Martin's the way to go. So I agree with Watts 211 on that one. I don't agree with him saying that you should stay away though. What's the fun in that? Put $10 on the game.
That's true.
Maybe if you don't think there's a right side, just lower your bet amount. Just bet a lot less. Put $10 on it for some fun.
Perfectly reasonable points. Yeah, I think if we're talking about some potential players that like if we're actually talking about an ideal matchup here, like not having Moore, and I haven't been a fan of his all year. I don't know where David McCormick is for most valuable player of the Final Four, but like that makes it decisively easier for him inside. Like I know he hasn't been consistently good, but he had his best game of the season against Miami. No Justin Moore inside. Reader, like I wouldn't touch that bet with a 30.
I wouldn't go near that. David McCormick stinks. And Nova plays a zone. Yeah. That's not going to bother him. McCormick's going to be throwing it right off the rim every time. I hate David McCormick. One of my least favorite players in college basketball.
Wow. Would you put $10 on it at 100-1?
Like sure, 100-1 because like he's gonna play the whole game. But like again, Remy Martin. I would go the opposite route. I guess I throw McCormick in there, but if you're betting most outstanding player, like look at guys. And when we talk about the Duke game, I have some ideas. But like I would fade Agbaji in this type of thing, and I would go with like I would sprinkle your bets around like Remy Martin, Christian Braun, and I guess David McCormick. But I would look more at Braun and Remy Martin because the ball is going to be in their hands a lot, and like it's a Final Four award, so it's just 2 games. So Agbaji could have 12-12 while Christian Braun goes for 25 in one of the games. All of a sudden, he's going to win. So I think you get
just a Final Four award.
It is just a Final Four award. It's most outstanding player of the Final Four.
That's embarrassing. Didn't know that. Thought it was the whole tournament.
So I like the Remy Martin call. That's why he was 50-1 last week, and I put a little bit on it because I thought Kansas had a good path. But if you're looking, I think fade the big names, your Bancheros, your Baycots, your Gillespie's, even though I think this kind of caters to Gillespie, but still my point being you can fade the star of the team in this kind of small sample size thing.
David McCormick, 17 minutes, 15 points in that game. Very
different teams though.
What's that?
Different teams.
Moore being out doesn't help McCormick though. Like Moore's going to guard a wing guy. He probably would have guarded Agbaji. Like that doesn't do anything for McCormick. Villanova's like definitely doesn't have the size down low, but they also like they've won even though they haven't had the size advantage in any of these games. So I don't know.
Also,
if he's
like
really
David
the
McCormick's just like
difference
bad at basketball, so it makes it difficult for him to win most outstanding player. He's just
All
like
right,
not good at basketball.
You've made your McCormick point. I'll go ahead and eat it. It's perfectly reasonable.
No, like people think David McCormick's good, but like I am of the belief that David McCormick is actually a bad basketball player. Which like makes it difficult for me to like bet on him to win like something that says most outstanding.
I was thinking about how Villanova guards on the perimeter and trying to shut down Martin and trying to shut down Akbaji. Like they're going to have to toss it to him inside. But I get where you're coming from.
At the rim.
Like I said, I'm not his biggest fan. All right, Peter, I know you're on the other side. You're on the other side of Ian. What is this like with the fifth consecutive time that you guys have now gone head to head in best bets that you guys just clearly
We're never on the same side.
Never
ever.
on the same side.
Not even in
Every
NFL.
time.
Even at NFL, we were opposite sides.
All right.
Yeah.
Why do you like Villanova plus the points?
Yeah, Reed made a lot of good points. I just think this line is an overreaction to the Justin Moore injury a little bit. And Justin Moore has been great this year. Don't get me wrong. He's their second leading scorer. He's also shooting below 40% from the field, and he scored 8 points in 2 of their tournament games. In those 2 games, he combined 5 for 19 from the field. It's not like he's been lights out shooting the ball. They actually ran most of their offense in that Elite Eight game against Houston through Caleb Daniels, and he ended up having a nice stat line. If you just look at the numbers, he shot 4 for 16, which isn't great. But he's also shooting 42% from the field this season, shooting better from 3 than Justin Moore. He's going to get more touches in this game. That's really what it's going to be. Jay Wright has played 6 guys all year. That's all they've done. You're going to see Chris Arcidiacono for a little bit, probably off the bench as that 6th guy. But they're basically going to run with the 5 guys that got them there. It's going to be Slater, Gillespie, Daniels, Dixon, and who am I missing? Jermaine Samuels. So, yeah. So, and speaking of dark horse picks, if you think Villanova's going to go, Jermaine Samuels is the guy because he's been playing out of his mind in this tournament. But I just think Villanova, we talk about the pace and like, yes, Kansas is going to try and speed them up. But every game, if you watch Villanova in the Big East tournament, you watch them in this tournament, they've slowed the other team down. It's a big reason. And I've talked about coaching like ad nauseum, but like, Jay Wright is the better coach in this game. They're going to play the way they want to play. They may not have the talent to beat Kansas because they're shorthanded, but this game is going to go the way that Villanova wants it to go. It's going to be slow. I think they average over 19 seconds per possession offensively. Like they're just going to hold the ball and try and get a good shot every single time down. I trust Colin Gillespie in this spot a lot. He's been there. He knows what he's doing. And the other thing, KenPom has Villanova as a 1-point dog in this game. So the fact that this line is at 4.5, like I really think this is going to be a low-scoring, one-possession game, come down to the wire where somebody's got to make a shot or free throws at the end of the game. I don't see Villanova getting blown out by any chance, so I'll gladly take the 4.5 points in this spot.
Best free throw shooting team in the country, also Villanova.
Exactly.
Who cares what KenPom has to say? Just stop praising him as the college basketball god. Who can? Guess what? I'm Kansas as a 15-point favorite. Now what?
I needed that. We needed our weekly, anti-KenPom rant.
Yeah, who says we don't play the hits on this show?
Exactly. Listen, I'm glad that Peter and Reed are with me because I'm with them, but I'm taking it one step forward. I think Villanova is going to win this game, and I think, and I'm really glad that Peter brought up, what's his name? Daniels. My bad. Justin Moore, right? Justin Moore, he's shooting below 36%. Like they still have their top 2 3-point shooters. Gillespie shoots over 40%. Daniel shoots 37%. They still have shooters. And one of the points that Ben made at the very beginning of this, when he picked Villanova, was that they shoot free throws better than anybody in the country. And you see what happened against Houston. They were in the ugliest rock fight of a game. The game ended, right? They won scoring 50 points. And they were able to keep that lead down the stretch because teams can't even get into a foul game with them because it's just an automatic 2 points once you get into that situation with Nova. So I think that Jay Wright is going to adjust. He's had time. They're going to be okay. The shooters are going to be just fine. And if we get down into a close situation, I'm going to take Villanova every single time. And so I'm going to take it one step forward. I think they get to the national championship game.
Ian, do you see a scenario in which Kansas runs away from them, or do you expect it to be a close game?
Realistically, it's probably. I mean, Villanova's a very good team. They're a number 2 seed for a reason, so it's probably going to be a close game. I was being a little facetious when I said that Kansas is a 15-point favorite in my books, but
the brashness from before slowly
I just wanted an anti-Ken Palm stance. That's all. That's
Listen,
my number one. By the way, Brian points out in the chat, only one of Ken Palm's top 6 teams in the Final Four.
There's only 4 teams left. I mean,
and there's only one out of his top 6. Only one made it.
I'm not basing this entire thing off of Ken Palm. I just find it interesting that they only have Kansas as a 1-point favorite. Like I really think this line's an overreaction. Justin Moore is very good, but they played 6 guys all year like this. They're just gonna. It's literally a plug and play. Like Daniels is just gonna take the Justin Moore role, and they'll bring Arcidiacono in to spell the guards. That's all it's gonna be.
I do have one final legitimate counterpoint though. You mentioned it, Peter. They have a 6-man rotation, and now they're down a man.
They went to Arcidiacono in the last game, but like Jay Wright, he's done it all year where he'll sit Gillespie right before a TV timeout and then put him back in, like immediately back in the game. Like they literally only reason Daniels comes is if they go small with Jermaine Samuels at the 5. That's when Daniels comes into the game. Like if they get in foul trouble, yes, it will hurt them. That I get, but like their big thing is just like Dixon is going to have to play more minutes now. Like at the end of games, they've closed games with Samuels at the 5 and Dixon's out of the game. Now they'll probably just have to play Dixon more. But foul trouble I could see being an issue, but at the same time, it's a very disciplined team. So I'll take my chances.
I was just trying to quickly look up how many times opponents foul Kansas. But yeah, you're right. You better hope they don't get into foul trouble because that's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, that's the issue.
I did look at some of the numbers a little bit earlier today. So Kansas ranks 164th in the country in free throw percentage, 71.9%. Villanova, as we mentioned, first at 83%. But since 1985, like going back and evaluating like every team's overall free throw percentage over the course of the year and whether or not it ultimately mattered come tournament time and winning a championship, national championship teams have averaged 71.98%. So just like right at 72% as a free throw shooting team. Like there have also been 18 teams in NCAA tournament history that have a worse free throw shooting percentage than Kansas that have gone on to win. The most recent was the 2021 Baylor team. Baylor that year, I think, shot 70.8%, which was 182nd in the country. What's that?
I feel like 70 still qualifies for college basketball as like decent, right?
Yeah, it's slightly under league average.
Okay.
It's 70%. And so Baylor was just above league average, but still 186. So I guess there's how many teams in college basketball? 358. So 182nd. So it would have actually been below average.
Yeah. Well, like
in 2021.
And so Kansas, I think, is like above average, but like slightly, right? Like they're middle of the pack.
Correct. So you can be a mediocre free throw shooting team and still win a championship. But like to the point that you guys were making about this game, if Villanova dictates pace, then the Kansas free throw shooting woes are going to be a significant factor. If Kansas tries to run, like the total in this game is 133. If Kansas tries to run, that's going to be really interesting because Villanova is already playing a player down. They don't want to run. And like if you're talking about already having a short bench, that's an advantage for Kansas in the second half as well. So how this game goes in the first half, I think it's going to be really
Villanova.
Kansas kind of plays a short rotation too. Kansas, like they go 117.
But the whole styles are different though, Reed. Like Kansas loves to push.
But if Villanova dictates the pace, then this game inherently makes them more valuable because they're going to play their like. I don't think we're going to know if they're going to be able to run or not, but like Nova's pretty good at limiting transition opportunities to begin with. So if Nova succeeds at that and makes Kansas execute in the half court, that just plays into Villanova's hands. You know, like again, Kansas are really good at running and stuff, but what happens when they can't run? They they struggle to beat. They went to like grinders with Texas Tech because Texas Tech slowed them down. So I'm just like that's kind of my push and pull. And like
they also pushed Texas Tech in that game in Lawrence, though.
Yeah, but again, like. If it's going to be a grinding type style, then, you know, can Kansas pull away? And what if Villanova's up late in the game? Can Kansas come back when they have to play the fouling game when Colin Gillespie's going 91% from the line? And it's similar to like let me compare it to like a football game, like a Wisconsin Big Ten football game, Wisconsin, Iowa. If Wisconsin was favored by like 7.5, but the total's 39, like it's just inherently valuable to bet the underdog because the underdog, like the points, the expected points are supposed to be so low. So if Kansas is going to make this a 55, 60 possession game, taking the points is just inherently valuable, especially over two buckets here. So that's kind of just like a simplistic way of kind of evaluating this game. I don't think legs are going to play a factor that much. Like, it's the Final Four, and these are two like elite ball clubs. I think everyone's showing up.
Right, you have rest too. That's fair.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think Villanova would welcome Kansas if they want to like push the pace offensively and like take quick shots. Like, I think they'd like that because you don't have to play defense for as long. If Kansas wants to go and take shots 10 seconds into the shot clock, and if Nova can clear the glass, sure, by all means, don't let us play on the defensive end, and we'll go and take 25 seconds to go get a good shot on the other end. Like, I think the difference is, like, you can speed teams up if the other team is constantly missing shots, which is what we've seen with this Villanova team. Is like, they're a very efficient shooting team. So, like, unless they have a completely off night, they're going to slow the ball down every time they have it. So at that point, Kansas is either going to have to be like, okay, are we just going to try and take every miss and push the ball, or are we going to play at their pace and play deliberate and get shots? Like, I think it's a lot harder to speed up a team that inherently play the 343rd adjusted tempo in the country. Like, they're going to play slow regardless. Kansas can try and speed them up, but I think defensively, if I'm Villanova, if Kansas is going to take a shot within 10 seconds, let them, because we only have 5 guys anyway. And the thing I looked up, Ian, fouls wise, so not a single guy on Villanova averages over 2.6 fouls a game. They foul an average of 15 times a game, which is 303rd in the country, 303rd most in the country. So
but also to counterpoint that, Kansas is in the top 100 in opponent fouls, though.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting.
All right, fun game. I should mention too the part of the reason why I thought Kansas might push might actually lead on the over at 133. Maybe that's advantageous to them. It was if I were betting this game, I would still take Villanova at plus 4.5. I think that's the better line here. But it was more so a play on whether or not that allows the over if they're going to push. Like, they tried to do that against Providence, and nobody made shots in that game. And then they
does that mean I'm by myself here?
I believe so.
Yeah.
We need a name.
That's the way I like it.
I think the only other person that's with you is Brian with his Kempom Truther. But I have to say on that, saying top 6 is a random number. Why don't you just go to the top 10? Because if you go to the top 10, three of the 4 Final Four teams are in Kempom's top 10. Why are you just top 6, top 7? You're just speaking weird numbers.
Logic,
Stick to the numbers that everybody knows. You go top 3, top 5, top 10. And nobody cares about top 6. If you go to top 10, 3 of the 4 teams are there. So your man Kempom, he knows a little something. Just a little bit.
Oh, I'm assuming it's UNC's the one that's not in the top 10?
Yeah.
I was hoping it was going to be Villanova. Oh,
no.
Villanova's 7. If you had gone one more, 2 in the top 7 too.
Okay.
Semantics. By the way, I have a Villanova 25-1 future, and my wife is a diehard KU Jayhawks fan. So I'm not really sure what I should do.
Separate.
Actually, to be fair, I have a Villanova future too. I have a Villanova future too. So if they win, it's fine.
Yeah, I think the play would probably be to hedge with the Jayhawks here. Short hedge on the Jayhawks. That way, I can tell her that I'm rooting for KU. Not have to sleep in the basement. I think that's probably the play here. Let's dive into North Carolina and Duke, because we got a couple more best bets to dive into in this matchup. Line opened, I believe, at 4.5, since actually moved down to the Blue Devils as 4-point favorites. Duke is minus 200 on the money line, North Carolina plus 165. So interestingly, both of the underdogs for the Final Four are at plus 165, even though Villanova is at plus 4.5 and North Carolina is at 4. Much higher total in this one. Opened at around 150.5 and has since moved to 151. Really, really intriguing game. Obviously, you have the rivalry behind it, which is certainly going to be in play. But Reed, I'll go back to you because I know that this is one of your best bets as well. Tell me who you like in the Tobacco Road Part 3.
Yeah, I need to admit I was wrong. I think, you got to be honorable. I said I thought Duke was getting bounced by Davidson. Davidson didn't even make it. I thought they were going to get bounced by Tech. That didn't happen, even though that was a classic in my opinion. I think Duke's going to win the national championship. Unfortunately, I grew up a UNC fan. I hate Coach K. I think that they realized their potential during this tournament run, and they're the most talented team left. I think that they're ultimately going to cut down the nets on Monday night. So that being said, I obviously like Duke to cover in this game. And again, I think that there's matchup advantages, but everyone's talking about how North Carolina is playing like the best team in the country over the past month or so. But Duke is also really dominating this tournament and looking the part. Paolo Banchero starting to really look like a potential number one pick. Mark Williams has dominated down low. Roach, point guard, has really started to gain his confidence. And on the outside, you have guys like AJ Griffin and Wendell Moore. I just think that this team is the most talented left, and they're starting to play like it too. They've really found their confidence. And now let's look at this simple handicap. So I went back and looked. Duke closed a 3.5-point favorite at North Carolina in early February. They won by 20, and I think they led by 27 for most, like 27, 28 points. Like the game was over from tips. So there's that. Then Duke closed an 11-point favorite in Coach K's last game, which we obviously know he lost. And I'm going to attribute some of that point spread to the expected home crowd, the juice from the game. I expected a little bit of an overcompensation. So let's go back to that February matchup. 3.5 on the road. If you take out 3, probably closer to 3.5 points of home court advantage, Duke's laying 7 on a neutral. Where's the North Carolina's 3 points better than they were and Duke's 3-point worse on a neutral here? I don't know. I just think that Duke, they're more skilled, they're more talented. They have, in my opinion, more momentum. They just kind of look the part more. I understand North Carolina beat UCLA and Baylor on the way, but to me, I just think that this is kind of a perfect storm for a Duke cover. I won't go with a blowout, but I think they maybe close this out and win by 7-8 points. So Duke kind of all things kind of put me there.
Reed and I are literally we have not only the same pick, but the logic and the build up to it is exactly the same. I also grew up a low key Tar Heel fan, right? I almost went to North Carolina for school, and they've kind of stuck with me. But I think so. I also think that Duke is gonna win the national championship, and for a much more cynical reason. I just think that. Listen, the NCAA, the writers, they're not gonna let Coach K go out on a loss. He got the loss. He got the loss at Cameron. That was a beautiful. It was actually very, very fun to see Coach K just get dominated at Cameron Indoor. But I don't think that. I think that if they were going to lose, it was going to be to Tech. And while I did make the pick for our second chance bracket, I was low key nervous that Tech was going to go in and beat them. But everything that Reed said is 100% true. I think that they're clicking at the right time. And if you see kind of just the way that these games are playing out, they're playing out to be close games. They're playing out to be games where officiating is very, very monumental in these games. And I just don't see it going against Duke and going against Coach K. I think I low-key think that the fix is in. So yeah, I think Duke gets it. So it's for a much more cynical reason, though. I just can't see it.
I'm very intrigued to see where Ian is because I'm also leaning towards Duke in this game. I can't get past the fact that they have 5 NBA first-round picks on this roster. This team is just talent-wise is way more talented than North Carolina. And the thing I looked back at that matchup they lost at Cameron, North Carolina took 22 free throws in that game. Duke took 8. And on top of that, Armando Bacot has been dominating down low. He is not going to dominate down low against Mark Williams. This isn't going to be, where you're playing St. Peter's and the tallest guy is 6'8". He is going to have to deal with some bodies down low on the glass. I also just don't see any scenario where Duke does not get calls for the same reasons Donovan brought up, Coach K. They're going to get calls. This isn't going to be a 22-8 free throw game. I'm not sure if I want to lay the floor with Duke just because I do think North Carolina is peaking at the right time, and Hubert Davis has done a really good job with what this team right now. But at the same time, I think they win. So if I was going to go aside,
do you think they win at all?
I don't know if they win at all. I'm very intrigued to see this Nova Kansas game because I want to see how Nova plays without Justin Moore because I think Nova still has a legit chance to win just because they can control the pace. But Duke would scare me a lot with Nova just because of their size. I just don't know how Villanova matches up down low. But I'm not ready to make a national championship pick, to be honest with you, because I could see any of these 4 teams getting into national title. I don't think there's a guarantee somebody wins on either side.
You should, though, if you like Duke in this game and you want to kind of enhance your value, you should just open money line parlay it. Like, do Duke in this game if you think they're likely to win, and then leave it open. You can kind of decide on Monday whatever you want to do with it, whether you want to take Duke or the winner of the other game, or they just lose.
I like that call. I like that a lot.
Very possible they could just lose.
Showing it all right.
You guys are all acting like you've all forgotten that UNC beat arguably the best team in the entire tournament, the St. Peter's Peacocks. It's like as if you've forgotten that, and that was just a few days ago. They crushed him. No, but seriously, I think this is good. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm taking UNC in the points. First game was a huge Duke blowout. Second game was a huge UNC blowout. The logical thing, even though it doesn't really have any logic to back it, is that the last game is going to be close.
No, I know what you're saying.
The first game I'm completely throwing out the window because if you look at the stats from that game, Duke hit almost 60% from the field, and they out-rebounded UNC by almost 20, which is insane because UNC is like 4th in the country in rebounding rate. That's definitely not going to happen again. Duke's definitely not going to shoot 60% from the field again. I think it's just going to be a close game. I mean, it's 2 conference rivals, 2 all-time historic rivals meeting in the Final Four. I think it's just building up to be a close game. You want to talk about dark horse to win most outstanding player, the guy who I've been on since I saw him live in the ACC tournament at the Barclays Center, Brady Manek. I've been saying it week after week, Manek Mania. He is the game changer on that UNC team. He can pound it down low. He can shoot the 3 when he needs to. I like UNC in this game. I think they're going to win outright, but I'll take the 4 points because I think it's going to be close. Caleb Love has been playing fantastic. RJ Davis, Leaky Black. They're all firing all cylinders right now. I think it's going to be a close game coming down to the wire.
Yeah, and this honestly, my Coach K hate I don't think is that misguided because I don't even think this is like a Coach K thing. I don't think that he's drawing it up. He's kind of throwing out zones because that's all he's got left.
He's got 2 top 5 picks. He's just giving the ball and go score.
I didn't think Duke could reach this ceiling that they showed the past week, where they beat Texas Tech and they didn't miss a field goal the last 9 minutes, where they kind of just rolled over Arkansas. They've just hit another level that I didn't think they could hit. So again, this isn't like, I'm not necessarily buying like the Coach K's last dance thing. I just think that this is a team that is starting to realize their potential and just like, wow, we're actually amazing. We should kind of dominate these teams. And they're going out there and they're firing on all cylinders. So again, I still hate Coach K. It's going to annoy me that I think he's going to win it all because I don't think it really has anything to do with him as opposed to he has like a future top 5 NBA player. He has like another lottery pick and another first rounder and like the next great big role man. So like all that stuff. But yeah, no, I think Duke's the best team left. And I think that they kind of got over the hump.
You brought up an interesting point there, Reed, that Duke has just been going to the zone quite a bit. But I mean, UNC is going to know how to beat a zone. Obviously, they play against the number 1 zone team in the country, Syracuse.
Oh, tournament zones are a different beast, though. Tournament zones are a different beast. Then why do you think Syracuse goes to the Final Four every year?
Yeah, but I mean, like, who's better built to beat the zone than another team in the ACC?
Yeah, I was more saying that I just don't think Coach K is really doing much like adjustment-wise. Like, I don't think this is like a Coach K sparked Final Four run. I think this is like we're better than you and we're going to beat you type Final Four run.
My other final point is I think people are getting a little bit distracted by the number 8 seed because I think this team is UNC is a lot more talented than what a normal number 8 seed will be. They underperformed in the regular season, and that's why they're number 8. But talent-wise and skill-wise, they're much better than a number 8. So I think they're getting a little bit undervalued because of that number next to the name.
That's fair.
If I had to make a pick on a side, if it's still at 4, I don't mind Duke in this spot. Again, I think talent and I suppose coaching would weigh out. It's not to take anything away from Hubert Davis in this year. He's done a remarkable job in the tournament. Like North Carolina is 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread in fairly convincing fashion. The only game, by the way, that Duke did not cover was the game against Cal State Fullerton, where they won by 17, and I think the line was 18.5. So I'm not going to really fault Duke for good teams win, great teams cover. Duke has been a great team throughout the course of this tournament. I think what's interesting for me, and I'm actually going to be on the total here, I got it at 150.5. It's now at 151 is my best bet. I like the over in this game. And that's even with North Carolina completely changing their identity. They were not a good defensive team at all this season. They were in the 47th percentile as far as defensive rating goes, but that's moved from 102.9, which was, again, like just below middle of the pack. Over their last 5 games, their defensive rating is 94.7. That's the 94th percentile. That's a substantial jump over the course of it. And that didn't even include, by the way, when I was calculating those numbers, that didn't include the win against St. Peter's where they limited the Peacocks to 49 points. So that number is going to go even higher.
Yeah.
The reason, though, that I still like the over is what Duke is doing. Like, obviously, they're the number 1 efficient offense in the country, but they're on a historic level with getting points in the paint. Like, they're just getting easy buckets and they're just dominating inside. And yes, North Carolina has size, but the Tar Heels in both games gave up a ton of points to Duke in the 80s in both of those games. So factor in Duke being able to score at will inside, still making outside shots. North Carolina is going to have to push pace to try to keep up with Duke. They'll play a faster game than the Blue Devils will, because they're right around the average as far as pace goes. But since 2010, this is from ESPN Stats and Info, Duke's 166 paint points are tied for the 3rd most by a team entering the Final Four. Like, even if your defense has gone from a mediocre level to an elite level, when you're an extremely athletic, tall, lengthy team like Duke is, getting inside points, it doesn't really matter how much better your defensive rating is. Like, Duke is still going to score at will inside on them. So, yeah, it might be a little bit more defensive-minded from North Carolina, but I just don't think it's going to matter. I think both these teams are going to score. Duke knows how to score on North Carolina. I don't envision a situation where the Tar Heels just go completely ice cold against Duke's defense, which has had their issues throughout the course of the season. So 150, 151, or 151.5, if that gets to that number, I still think the over is very much in play for that game. You guys have any thoughts? We didn't really touch on the totals for either of these 2 games. So before we get out of here, anybody have any thoughts as well on either Kansas, Villanova at 133, Duke, North Carolina at 151?
I would take the under in the Villanova game. I just don't think there's going to be enough possessions.
Same here. And I would also take the under. I actually think in the Duke UNC game, I like Ian said, both of the first 2 games were blowouts, and so just kind of like in your mind, you're picturing a slower, close game in the 3rd matchup, and so that's where I would go.
No, real. I think I'd lean under in the Nova game, over in the Duke game, but like I'm not playing either. I'm just gonna stick to the sides.
And there you go.
There it is.
I have no thoughts on the totals.
There it is.
I'll go over.
Whatever Ian was going to say, I was taking the other side, actually.
I just like to fade trends, and the under trend makes me think that we're going to see regression, so I'd take over in both. How's that?
What was it? It was 11-1 in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 for unders. You guys know the one game that hit the over? It was Texas Tech and Duke.
Yeah.
Go figure.
That's right.
Now, the one total bet that I made in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 on the under was sure enough the wrong game. That's the way it goes. Thank you guys for watching, hanging out with us over the course of the season. We'll be back again next week for a brand new round. We'll be approaching both the Masters as well as the NBA play-in round. Stanley Cup playoffs are just around the corner as well. These are eating up in the month of April here at BetSided. So for my guys, Ian, Peter, Donovan, and Reed, also big shout out to our video director, Joanne Stoner. I am Ben Heisler. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. May all of your bets hit for the Final Four and beyond. Until then, we'll talk to you soon. So long.